Most people move through life with a quiet ache they can't quite explain. They wake up tired, drift through their days feeling overwhelmed, and lie down at night with a persistent question. Is this really all there is? It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't care. What's missing isn't effort. It's direction, a compass, something deeper to anchor them when life gets loud and chaotic. That's where Stoicism enters, not as an old philosophy gathering dust, but as a way of being, rooted in four timeless virtues: courage, discipline, justice, wisdom. These aren't abstract ideals. They're tools. They're anchors. They're clarity in confusion. They're strength when things fall apart. They're resilience in a world that keeps spinning faster. Courage moves you forward when fear tells you to freeze. Discipline grounds you when motivation disappears. Justice gives your strength purpose. And wisdom. Wisdom quiets the noise and helps you see clearly again. If you've been feeling unmoored, like you're reacting to life instead of leading it, this is your invitation to something more grounded, more intentional. And if you're finding value in what we're building here, I'd ask one small favor. Tap the subscribe button. It's free, but it helps more than you know. Now, let's begin where every transformation starts, with courage. Because when you look closely, everything meaningful in life hinges on this one word. But courage? It's not always loud. It doesn't always look like battle cries or bold moves. Sometimes courage is quiet. It shows up in the still, uncomfortable moments no one ever sees. It's the courage to be honest in a world addicted to pretending, to forgive someone who may never apologize, to walk away from what's familiar, even when it feels safe. And most of all, to be yourself, especially when who you are doesn't fit the mold. Carl Jung once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But what he didn't say is how terrifying that process can be. Because the moment you stop pretending, you risk being seen. And to be seen is to risk being judged, misunderstood, even rejected. But Stoicism teaches us this: being misunderstood isn't the danger. Living a life that isn't yours is. Marcus Aurelius reminds us again and again, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be one. That's the Stoic way. Not to wait until you're ready, not to overanalyze every decision, but to act, to embody the values, to take the step. Zoom out for a moment. Why does all of this matter? Because when fear is in charge, your life slowly contracts. You say no more often. You avoid risk. You turn away from growth. And one day, you realize you didn't build your life with passion. You built it out of avoidance. That's not living. That's quiet survival. Fear is clever. It speaks the language of logic. It tells you to wait until the timing is right, to stay safe just in case, or the classic, what will people think? But here's the truth. They're not in the arena with you. They won't live with the consequences of your inaction. You will. So picture this. You're standing on a metaphorical cliff. Below you, everything you've outgrown. Behind you, everything you've already done. Ahead, the leap, the unknown. The truth you've been trying not to see. Maybe it's starting something new, ending something that's over, moving somewhere that calls you, or finally saying what's been sitting in your heart. You know what you need to do, but your legs won't move. This is where most people shrink. They turn back. They call it being practical. But the Stoic path? It calls for more. It asks you to leap, with fear still in your chest, to trust that your wings will grow on the way down. Because here's the paradox. You don't build courage by thinking about it. You build it by using it. Every time you move through fear, even just a little, you become more. You send yourself a message. I can do hard things. And slowly, that message rewires you. It becomes your inner voice, not the one that whispers, "What if I fail?" but the one that leans in and asks, "What if this changes everything?" Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." I'd take it one step further. The unlived life isn't either. A life ruled by fear isn't truly lived. It's postponed, muted, watered down. Not because you're incapable, but because you're waiting for the fear to leave, waiting to feel ready. Let's bring this down to earth. You don't need to conquer fear all at once. You just need to move. A little. Send the email. Sign up for the class. Speak the truth. Just once. One uncomfortable action per day. That's it. Nothing heroic. Just one honest moment where you feel the fear and move anyway. Do that. Stack those small moments day after day and watch what happens. You begin to feel different, lighter, stronger, more like someone you can trust. And here's the truth. Fear doesn't vanish, but your relationship with it changes. It becomes familiar, like background noise. You don't fight it anymore. You nod at it and move forward anyway. That's what courage looks like. Not loud, not dramatic, just steady. Plato once said, "Courage is knowing what not to fear." That's everything. Because most of us, we're afraid of the wrong things. We're afraid of being judged, of looking foolish, of being rejected. But we're not nearly afraid enough of wasting years in hesitation, of shrinking away from who we're meant to become. Let that settle for a second. We fear failure more than we fear not living. So let me ask you, honestly, what would you do if fear wasn't in the way? What would you pursue? What would you change? Who would you become? That version of you, it's not a fantasy. It's just sitting on the other side of a single decision. One choice, and you can make it right now. But here's where things shift. Because courage gets you started, but it won't carry you forever. You can be brave today and still fall back into old patterns tomorrow. You can speak up in one moment and still hide the next. That's why we need something more. Discipline, the second Stoic virtue. The one no one romanticizes, but everyone needs. Because courage is how you begin, but discipline is how you keep going. Can you keep showing up when no one is watching? Can you choose growth over comfort? Not once, but repeatedly. That's not about bravery anymore. That's about commitment. That's about who you are becoming in the quiet, ordinary moments that no one applauds. It's not loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't get likes or retweets. It happens in quiet places. Behind closed doors. Early in the morning, late at night. When no one's watching and no one will ever know. Discipline is built in those small, invisible moments. Moments that seem insignificant, but shape everything. Moments where you choose comfort or growth, rest or reps, delay or action. Most people don't even realize. These are choices, but they are. Every time you hit snooze, every time you quit early, every time you say later, you're making a decision. And whether you're aware of it or not, you're training something. You're building habits. And your mind keeps track. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Discipline brings awareness. It shines a light on the quiet deals you make with yourself, and dares you to stop breaking them. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, the most powerful man in the world, had to coach himself out of bed in the morning. One of his most famous passages in Meditations is literally a pep talk. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, "I have to go to work as a human being." That's not weakness. That's honesty. Even with power, wealth, and control, he still fought the same internal battles we do. Because discipline doesn't mean you've got it all together. It means you choose to show up. even when every part of you says not to. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to make promises to others, and how hard it is to keep the ones you make to yourself? Why is that? Why is it so difficult to write 1 page a day, eat clean for a week, or finally start that course you've been talking about? Because self-discipline is the highest form of self-respect, and most people were never taught how to respect themselves through action, not just in theory. But here's what's beautiful. Every time you follow through, every time you keep a small promise to yourself, your self-respect grows, quietly, steadily, and eventually, you begin to trust yourself, not in a loud, boastful way, but in a deep, steady way. That's rare. That's real power. Here's something to sit with. Discipline is love, but not the soft, romanticized kind. It's the tough, structured, boundary-setting kind. It's the voice inside that says, I care too much about you to let you keep sabotaging yourself. It's the version of you that refuses to keep living the same story. It's not about punishment, it's about freedom. Let that settle in. Discipline creates freedom. When you build discipline around your money, you don't panic when life throws you a curveball. When you build discipline around your time, you actually have space to think, to breathe, to create. When you build discipline around your health, you stop fearing every new diagnosis or diet trend. Discipline takes the chaos of life and turns it into rhythm, a steady beat, something you can move with, something that holds you steady when everything else feels uncertain. Plato said, "The first and best victory is to conquer self. To be conquered by self is of all things the most shameful and vile." It's a hard truth, but an honest one. If you can't lead yourself, how can you expect to lead anyone else? Your team, your family, your future. It all flows from your ability to govern your own actions. That's why the Stoics didn't just speak of virtue. They lived it. They trained. They fasted. They exposed themselves to discomfort on purpose, not to suffer, not to impress, but to prove to themselves that they were stronger than circumstance, that their comfort wasn't their master. Now, what about us? Maybe we're not walking barefoot through Rome, but we are walking through a world of cheap dopamine, easy excuses, and constant distraction. In that world, even 5 minutes of focused effort is an act of rebellion. 1 hour of deep work can change everything, not just what you produce, but how you see yourself. Choosing to get up and move your body instead of hitting snooze isn't just a fitness decision. It's a quiet stand against the part of you that wants to stay the same. That's what discipline really is. Not rigid control, not punishment, but a process of reclaiming your power. Choice by choice, habit by habit. You don't need to overhaul your life in one day. That's a trap. Start smaller. Win the next moment. Make one good decision. Then do it again. That's discipline. Even Socrates, widely known as the wisest man in Athens, understood the value of effort. He said, "No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable." It's not about vanity. It's about honoring potential. And not just physical potential, but mental, emotional, spiritual. So ask yourself, what are you leaving on the table simply because you've never stuck with something long enough to see what's possible? What would your life look like 90 days from now if you kept just one promise to yourself each day? It doesn't have to be big, just consistent. Write a paragraph a day. Take a cold shower. No social media until 10 a.m. Whatever you choose, own it. Make it sacred. And if you fall off, that's okay. Get back on. That's part of the work too, because discipline doesn't demand perfection. It only asks for your presence, especially on the days you don't feel like showing up. So start small. Pick one thing. just one. Commit to it for a week, then stretch it to 10 days, then a month. You're not trying to be flawless. You're becoming someone who no longer breaks promises to themselves. And when that version of you begins to emerge, there's almost nothing you can't handle. No storm you can't weather. No goal you can't outlast. No challenge that can take away your peace. That's not hype. That's reality. It's what the Stoics understood. It's what modern psychology confirms. And it's what discipline delivers. But here's the deeper question. If discipline gives you strength, what will you use that strength for? Because strength without purpose is just ego. And self-mastery without service to others is just selfishness with a polished surface. We live in a time of noise. Opinions fly fast and loud. Social media turns every thought into a battle. Even among friends and family, you can witness the same event through completely opposite lenses. In that chaos, many of us are just trying to figure out what's right. That's why the Stoic idea of justice matters so deeply. Not as a checklist, but as a compass, a steady guide to help you navigate the gray areas of life with integrity. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this often. He spoke of being a citizen of the world, someone who acts not just for personal gain, but for the common good. And he didn't just write about it, he lived it, every day, under immense pressure and power. But here's what people often forget. Justice isn't just about how you treat others. It's also about how you treat yourself. It means being fair to your own potential. It means holding yourself to a higher standard, not out of guilt, but out of respect. Because if you learn to govern yourself with clarity, with discipline, with intention, you become the kind of person this noisy world desperately needs. And that starts, not in big declarations, but in the quiet moment you choose to begin. Treating your body with respect starts with being honest with yourself, not avoiding discomfort, not hiding behind excuses, but choosing long-term strength over short-term ease. It's not about chasing perfection. It's about acting with principle, about holding yourself to a quiet standard, even when no one's watching. It means owning your impact, even in the small moments. Let's bring that into daily life. Picture a team meeting. A colleague gets talked over, again. You notice. Everyone notices. There's that brief silence, that uncomfortable pause. Most people say nothing, but your gut tightens, because something unfair just happened. And pretending you didn't see it? That's a choice too. You don't need to make a scene. Sometimes justice looks like circling back after the meeting, letting them know you saw it, making space for their voice next time. A small act, a quiet wait. But it matters. Or maybe someone sends a cruel message, starts gossip. You could add to it, fuel the fire. Or you could stop it right there, not out of superiority, but out of self-respect. Like Epictetus said, "It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting." Stoicism teaches us this. Choose your response carefully. Not every slight deserves a reaction. Not every injustice needs a spotlight. Sometimes justice is silent, steady, a calm refusal to compromise who you are. And when someone says, "Why should I do the right thing if no one else is?" that's the moment virtue is tested. Because justice isn't about getting something in return. It's not transactional. It's transformational. You do it not for approval, but for who you become. Aristotle once said, "The worst form of inequality is to try to make unequal things equal." And in a world where comfort often wins over principle, real justice might look like going against the grain. Saying no when yes would be easier. Telling the truth when silence would be safer. Taking the harder road even when no one's keeping score. Because when you do that, you build someone strong enough to face life with clarity and lead by quiet example. That's not about appearances. That's character. That's real power. You become someone you can trust, someone others can quietly rely on. Not because you say the right things, but because your actions align with your values. There's this idea floating around that justice is soft, idealistic, maybe even naive. But real justice, it takes strength. It takes courage to step in when it's easier to stay silent. It takes discipline to follow through when no one's clapping for you. It takes wisdom to know how to act and when to hold back. You don't need a novel. One page is enough, even a few lines. Wisdom builds slowly, but it builds strong. As Aristotle said, knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom. And every time you reflect honestly, you move one step closer to that kind of knowledge, not just in theory, but in who you are and how you show up in the world. And that kind of self-knowledge, it quietly transforms how you move through the world. It helps you approach decisions, big or small, with a little more clarity, a little more confidence. Let's be honest, wisdom isn't about perfection. Wise people still make mistakes. They just don't make the same ones forever. They learn faster. They spiral less. And when they fall, they rise with intention. Because they've spent time building something most people overlook. An inner compass. Discernment. That quiet ability to sense what aligns and what doesn't. Over time, that becomes one of the most valuable things you can carry through life. So here's the real takeaway. Don't chase wisdom like a finish line. Cultivate it like a garden. Train it like a muscle. Read more. Reflect often. Be willing to ask the hard questions. And listen, even when the answers are uncomfortable. And most of all, stay open. Changing your mind when the truth asks you to, that's not weakness, that's evolution. This journey through the Stoic virtues, it doesn't end with wisdom. It's where they all converge. Courage helps you take the first step. Discipline keeps you steady. Justice helps you aim true. And wisdom ensures you don't miss the mark. Yes, the world is noisy, unpredictable, often chaotic. But you don't have to be. You now have the tools. Courage to move, discipline to endure, justice to guide your impact, wisdom to keep your vision clear. That's how you live a life you can be proud of. Not all at once, one choice at a time. If this spoke to you, there's another video waiting for you on the screen. It goes deeper. It's worth your time. And whenever you're ready to return, to reflect, to realign, to grow, we'll be here. This is Stoic Mindset Mastery, a quiet space for clarity, strength, and the kind of growth that lasts.